Did you guys miss me?
Very much so. Very much so. Although I do have to say it was a good session. It was pretty much
Really was.
yeah.
Give me your ahas. What was something that you walked away with last week?
Orly, you go.
It was about lead generation, and I actually have it written down. One of the things that I got from Paula was during the last 450 days of COVID, how have you felt about your home? So that was a great script that I got from Paula when we're making our care calls.
How do you feel about your home? Wow.
Yeah.
That is a really good question. That is what's happened. And we were talking about that in our script and role play, is just that kind of dialogue with our friends, family, sphere, just to stir up the real estate conversation, because we all had the time to figure out, is this enough space? Is it too much space? Do I even like it? Maybe I want to move. I need a backyard.
I need a home office.
I don't want to look at my husband anymore.
Right. I got one of those the other day, getting divorced. Yes.
Oh my goodness, that's horrible.
So,
but
I'm
kidding. As I always say, when life happens, real estate happens. So.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That is right. That is right. All right, so let's get started. I'm probably challenged today with going live, but we have this recorded, so we'll go ahead and post it. And so today is about the budget model, and I know we've spoken about it, and yet I think we could kind of go a little deeper. I think we could just like slow it down a second and talk specifically about what these few pages actually talk about. So in the budget model, we do have some things that have changed too. And I've been talking to a few agents that when we're talking about today's market, maybe we just need to think about how could that get accomplished. When we talk about lead generation and we talk about the money we're spending in lead generation, I would bet you when this book was written, the money that was being spent inside of that category was really a lot of mailers and marketing pieces, right, ladies?
True, absolutely.
And now we're differentiating that. We're spending a little in ads. We're doing social media. We're boosting something.
Right. Facebook ads, Zillow, all of those things. Yes.
Right.
Very hard to keep track of, by the way, when you have so many different components of where you're spending.
Right. There are a lot of platforms, and the thing that you have to be mindful of is using those platforms, because it's not a given. It's following up and continuing to follow up.
Absolutely. And
specifically, what do you mean, Orly, when you say?
So, whether all the platforms that we have, so the Zillow leads, nurturing those, put them on a smart plan.
Oh, okay.
Homelight, verified leads. I mean, there's just so many platforms out there that you almost don't want to sign up for too many, because sometimes you're getting a lot of leads in one day, and are you really following up with them? What's falling between the cracks?
Okay.
How are you nurturing them? How are you remember to follow up a month from now, 2 months from now?
I didn't know whether you were referring that you really had to monitor the site performance.
No,
Okay.
just the leads.
But you do
You have to qualify your leads.
But Patty, in answer to your question, you do have to, because a lot of the sites work, even Zillow works this way. If they see that you're not converting or you don't have a good answer rate, they will give you less leads.
Okay.
So sometimes I tell single agents, be very careful of what you sign up for, because you don't want a fire hydrant full of leads that you will not be able to handle, like Boomtown.
Yeah.
Boomtown to me is, a robust team.
Which is great if
source.
you have 20 on your team.
yeah.
But if you're a single agent, absolutely not.
Yeah, you're doing yourself a disservice, and you're probably paying for something that you're losing money, because these leads are just falling between your fingers.
That's right.
I think too, when you get a market like we are today with such little inventory, people are clamoring. They've already saturated their pipeline, their people that they know, and they're desperate just to kind of get those leads, because you're limited on leads today just because of the market in such little inventory. So I think it's really important to pay attention to how much money you're spending on these and the quality of the leads. So it's not just getting a whole bunch of leads, it's looking at the quality of these leads and then kind of saying, is this worth it? And
But
I'm
that
gonna
was
say
the other question, and I don't know if we're getting off course here, is any lead not a good lead, or
Yeah.
it's the way you handle that lead? Because all leads are good leads. It depends on how you
Not
convert.
necessarily. A lot of these, some of the sites that feed off of Facebook ads are seriously,
Although, yeah.
they say
yeah,
just
well,
curious. They're even less than just curious. I mean, the minute you speak to them, it's like, no, like
They're
you know,
breathing.
I spoke to a guy
True.
yesterday who literally said, no, my house is going to go to my kids. I'm going to literally die here.
You know,
but time out,
and do you
because I
find
have
you have, go ahead, Mary Beth.
because I have to side with Paula for a second. I think we could, like, this is a good discussion. I was watching Little Fires Everywhere yesterday, and they were doing a book club, and they were just,
Love
going
that.
at it, right? Isn't it great, Paula?
Oh, that was
Um,
great.
So I believe that you're expanding your database with every single person that comes through any of the portals, right? So if you're truly putting them into, Orly, you said it before, a smart plan or a touch system, the follow-up, if we're truly dripping on them all of the opportunities that come in today's market, the refinance, the lower your interest rate, the pull the equity out, different opportunities, and then we continue to communicate with them. At some point, that database is going to have a friend or a family that has a need. And if we've won them over, then we had the opportunity to do that only because they came in as a bad lead.
well, yeah, but
Exactly.
it also can be like your waste, like they don't give you their proper name or phone number. So these are things that you're spending time researching to find out, it's not even the right. So it really depends, I guess, where those leads are coming from. So I agree that, most leads maybe you can put into your database, but some are just a waste of time.
You don't put them in your database. Some feed into the database, but the wrong number ones, yeah, obviously. But how many of those do we get out of how many we get? I mean, it's always a percentage.
How
Yeah,
many
and
are
I find it-
duplicates? How many come in through multiple systems and you find out, oh my gosh, that's the same lead I got off Facebook, or that's the same lead I got off Zillow?
Not many,
Happens.
not many, interestingly enough. Yeah, so
That
that's
is interesting. That's
occasionally.
really interesting.
But I also say to my team when I'm looking at my hair, it's terrible. But anyway,
You're beautiful, Paula.
Oh,
Stop.
and I say to them, when you go into a store to go dress shopping, let's say, right, or shirt shopping or whatever shopping, and people come up to you and you hate when people ask you, oh, can I help you? And you don't want them. And then all of a sudden you find the dress you want and then you can't find anybody because you want to know what size it's in, right? So same thing. Does somebody really go into a website if they're not even thinking or have an inkling of whether they want to buy a house? Orly is notorious for, if somebody doesn't know that they even want to sell, she's selling that house. They don't even know. When she came in, she whipped through and like, oh, okay, I got a listing. Because some people really, you think that they don't, but you know what? It's a drip system. Sometimes it might be in 2 years, 3 years. So it's not an immediate. Leads are not always immediate.
On that note, you're absolutely right, Paul. I heard the other day someone say, to clients in general, if you're even having a thought, an inkling, a curiosity of what your house is worth today because of what's going on, let's talk.
Yeah.
I mean, and what the verbiage I use all the time is, let me consult with you about your options. Because
That's a great line.
Nobody wants to be sold. Nobody wants, the minute you walk in the door, it's like, oh my God, she's going to make me list. And I tell them, I'm not here to list you. Don't worry about it. I have the luxury of being one of those realtors that will be there for you when you're ready. Let me just consult you on what your options are. And I literally walked away with this couple with a listing agreement, and they're listing next week. He's retired, she's retiring, but they just didn't. It's that fear of don't come and sell me.
Or
So you
where
just
am I
have to
going?
defuse
I don't
that.
want, yeah, or where am I going? I don't want to waste money on a rental. Okay, have you thought of buying a small condo and having it passive income and renting it out when you do find something that you like? Now cash out because the money is crazy. Save that money, maybe buy a smaller something if it comes available, because I did have some things come available. But now you have, you have to go a little deeper is I think what me and Orly are saying. You have to
Yeah.
go deeper and ask the questions because you can't assume, oh, just because they say, no, I'm not interested, that they're not.
Yeah. I had my first broker's husband used to always say, "You're not going to catch me at an open house on a Sunday. I promise. I am not interested in moving ever." And that was the truth. He wasn't going to waste his time. He's a high D. These people that come into an open house, they're actually click the button and fill out the form. They're curious for some reason. It could just be that their mom's going to move and they're just wondering about the process. So every lead is an opportunity for you to get into a conversation, to have dialogue with the people, just the people.
Yeah.
It's our duty to let them know what's going on. So with lead generating, just to kind of put a bow on the lead generation, is we're recognizing that it could be spent in all the different avenues. It could be the social media, it could be the ads, it could be open house, it could be marketing pieces, packages that you're dropping off. It could be an array of things, right? So now, here's where I struggle with people is that there is a point where it just makes sense to have a salaried person helping you out. And this is where agents very quickly go, well, Cheryl has her license. I'm just going to ask Cheryl to help me out and she can go run a few buyers for me. That will free me up to do my paperwork, to do my contracts. I mean, it's just not the smartest thing. So when we look at page 193, it gives a really great example as to where the money should be spent. Yeah. And on the first part is cost of sale. Now, if you don't have a business with buyer specialists and listing specialists in it yet, then that you're not going to have that kind of cost. Okay, you are in that cost of sale. Cost of sale, remember, is something that only closes, that only is an expense if a property closes. If a commission is earned, that is when a cost of sale happens. And so that's that. But and two, the operating expenses. Now there is a chart of accounts. There's a chart of accounts in the back of this book, in the appendix. And there's also a chart of accounts if you guys go to kellerinc.com and you go into the resources of the books, you have a download of an Excel document, which is the chart of accounts. Now, because I was a team leader for so long and I ran the offices, our chart of accounts looks very similar to the mega agent's chart of accounts. So I am very comfortable with, yep, there's a million categories that we could break things into. And you personally have to make the rule up for yourself. Like if it is, you have somebody that comes over and cleans your office, your personal home house, but they also clean your office. Okay, well, the expense of that, what portion of that, and do we go in cleaning and maintenance? And now you're not even thinking that you could probably write off a little bit of that expense if it's a home office, but you can because it's part of cleaning your office, maintenance. But we're talking about postage, rent. If you're renting, if it's part of your home, what portion are you using? That is the portion that you are actually allocating towards your business. If you're actually renting an office space, like Paula has her private location, Orly, then that would be part of the rent. But then we also get into supplies. It breaks down into meals, out-of-house printing, in-house printing. You start looking at your credit card for your business, and you could really itemize every single line item and put it into the chart of accounts. And the purpose of keeping a chart of accounts, and some of us may do it through QuickBooks, some of us may just download this Excel document and start with that, is to actually have a budget. Because we should be looking at it, let's just say every month, and at least twice a year to reassess. Now,
Sometimes
I know
weekly.
that some of the ladies do budget planning. Paula, Orly, would you share a little bit about, like, when do you do that?
So
And
when
who's
I
part
do,
of the process?
so part of the process is, usually towards the end of the year, you look at, I start with my goals. I start with my sourcing. Where did my business come from this year? Because whatever's working, you do more of. Whatever's not working, stop. It's, the red light, green light, very simple. What did I spend for mailings? How much business did I get for it? So if I got 35% of my business from my mailings, then it's a green light. You go ahead. What did I spend for postage? So that's my budget for the following year.
And
Repeat
time
when,
out for a second, because here she just said 2 items, right? She's got the postage aspect of it, which can she get it done cheaper? Maybe, maybe not. And then she's got the print aspect of it. Can she get that done for, cheaper? Maybe it's when she buys more, the price goes down. And then she's got the design aspect of it. Who's doing that? And can she get that done more efficiently? So those are 3 costs inside of one expense that you would have on different lines. And you'd be able to say, you know what? I'm paying a lot for this print. Maybe I could get it done over here and it's 25% off of what I've been spending. And then you add up the whole year and, oh my God, you save $5,000.
right. And I've done that. I've gone to different printers. In Coldwell Banker, I used to, print in-house, but we no longer do that. So obviously we do EDDM, so that brings down the cost of postage. And I think I have it down to printing in the mail, aside from postage, to 20 cents a piece.
And so
20
that's
cents a piece,
in
wow.
the year that we look at the budget, but every quarter we get, every quarter, we definitely look at our P&L because we need to see how much came in, how much we spent, and all the lead generation like Zillow and everything else. Was it worth it? Trying to get out of this, going into this. So we look at it very closely, very closely.
The sourcing is the key. Yeah.
Yeah, seeing where where your ROI is key, because you could just like hemorrhage money on things that you don't get anything back on.
Yeah. My
So-
buyer's
That's right.
agents have to give me a report every week, along with their appointments, calls, sourcing. Every offer they write, I need to know the source. And sometimes they tell me, Orly. I said, no, the fact that I handed you a lead, that's not a source. Your job when you speak to them is to say, what made you call Orly? Where did you find our name? Because, I sometimes, also am remiss when I speak to them about where they called from. Was it Zillow?
Sure.
Was it a sign call? So, that is really key. And it's hard to track everything when you become ubiquitous, but it is so key in running your business because you need to know what's working and what isn't.
You mentioned
So
a
with that-
35. Go ahead, Mary Beth.
Okay. I was just going to say, how many of us have a business credit card that we keep everything separate so it's a lot easier to see the true expenses, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
Cheryl.
Patty, what do you got?
Arlene, get a business credit card.
Orly mentioned a 35%. Do you remember saying it? And
Yes.
why did you pick that figure? 35% again, if you would repeat it, and then why you chose 35%.
I didn't choose 35%. So when I get my P&L from my bookkeeper, who I send everything to every month, this one doesn't have it, but usually I have a pie chart. And at the end of the year, when I'm looking at my source of business, if 35% of my business is coming from my mailings, because and you have to understand different sources of lead generation get you different leads. So mailings are for listings. Zillow is for buyers. So I know that 35% of my listings are coming from my mailings. So of course I'm going to
Your
continue
listings
that.
can come from Zillow if they're going in and looking at your.
Yes, I mean, I do get seller leads
Yeah.
from Zillow, but primarily it's a buyer generation tool. Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
And we are learning, actually, I have a session today with our coaching group with Nick Baldwin, the things that Command can do in creating landing pages to then redirect ads and actually create some awesome leads through command, we would want to watch and see like, okay, if I spend the same dollars that I would say spend in Zillow in the month, what kind of results would I get? And that's what you can do when you are holding your dollars accountable. But to Paula's point, if you're like, oh, let me buy this package and let me buy this 6 months and let me buy this over here, and then you feel like you're really busy and you're closing deals, and to Orly's point is you're not sourcing, what really made them call? Where did they get the number from? Where did they click? Then you're not going to hold every dollar accountable. But if you look in the back of the book, page 349, that's where the appendix A is. 349, 350, 350, all the way back there. And then it also gives you a balance sheet example on 357. This is what you would export out of the kellerinc.com in the MREA chart of accounts. And if you look at some of these expenses, we're like, wow, I don't even, you don't even think about it, but advertising, accounting, tax preparation, all your giveaway items, business cards, your automobile, gas, your banking, your checks, keep contract labor and consulting. If you had somebody do a little side job, or, you sent a logo to Fiverr, books, continued
Furniture.
education. What?
Furniture rental.
Yeah.
Lease on
Payroll
the copier.
taxes. Payroll taxes.
Payroll taxes. How about just all of your MLS dues, E&O, property insurance, lock boxes, meals? How many coffees did you go for with a client, or brought a cake over for a listing appointment because they were friends of yours? I mean, all those expenses add up. You wouldn't have spent that if you weren't in the real estate business, if you didn't have an appointment to go on. So as you add all that up, there's things that you go, oh yeah, but that's just what I do. Oh, but that's what I do. $300, $400, $500 a month later, that's just what you do. And that's $6,000 that you should be writing off every year, or at least holding accountable. Did that $6,000 actually create the transactions, or was that just what you do?
And when you have it printed out and organized monthly, I just handed this to my accountant this past weekend, last year's January to February to December. That's it. It's that easy. And he actually uses it as a model for other real estate agents that he does his taxes for.
I know you're making my life difficult with him, Orly.
After you get it done the first year, you're okay. Then you realize, you know what? I remember as a team leader, I would say, when I would go into a new office, I would look at their P&L, and you start to really look at it and you go, well, what's in this expense? I see $3,000 in meals for the year. Talk to me about that. What are the meals that we're spending $300 a month on? And then you start pulling it. Oh, that wasn't really a meal. That was a team meeting that somebody brought, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, those were balloons. Why was that in meals? And then you start to really dig deep. And I promise you, every MCA would say to me, like, who are you? What team leader digs at this? And I'm like, because I'm responsible for that profit. You are all responsible for that profit. And if you have people that are working with you, you're responsible for their profit. So what is profit? Profit is what's left over after we net, right? We bring it in, we spend, and then we have profit. So there's two different ways to build profit. I mean, you could only save your way to as much profit, but you could always make more profit by cutting the fat. And that's just what this is. This helps you do, is it helps you stay lean. Okay. All right. So moving into page 190, at the bottom of 192, I just want to hone in on this a little bit, is that when you are building a team and you are going to take on salaries and you are going to take on cost of sale, you need to make sure that you are providing the core of what an agent would be joining you, what the benefit would be. So do you have a solid admin team? And that's where the salaries are coming in at 12% of all of the expenses, right? Salaries, if we look at the bottom of the graph on 193, it says salaries and lead generation make up 72.6% of the expenses. So those are the two things you don't want to get wrong, for sure.
The only thing I have a problem with this is you have to understand we're in the Northeast where salaries are higher than the rest of the country. So my salaries from my budget is actually probably double that, just so you know. However, I'm still 72% profitable. So maybe I'm spending less on marketing than somebody else in another part of the country, although I do spend a
Okay.
lot on marketing.
I'll tell you why, probably because where you're saving money in this is that your dollar per unit. So how many photographs do you need to take? How many marketing pieces do you need for each listing compared to the guy who has to do 3 listings to your 1 listing?
Right.
Right. So his expenses are probably bulking up because of the units, where you're saying our salaries are up because of our location.
Correct.
Hmm. You would only know that if you had a budget, though, right?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. And if you networked with other agents throughout the country, which is another real aha here, because the ladies that are on here, I know, have done an amazing job at building a network, not only with the brand that they were with, but with the industry.
Right.
This is where all these numbers come from, is the industry. It's the culmination of top agents and what their best practices and what their P&Ls look like. This is not guesswork. So as you can see, though, we start to look at occupancy, technology, phones, supplies, education. That's all small stuff in comparison to what we're spending. So we look at the cost that we're going to go through in a business is people.
Mhm.
People in the cost of sale, people in the salaries. You know, lead generation is not necessarily people, but if we don't get this a big chunk of what we have to spend to make our wheel produce what we want is through people. So as we get into next week, we're going to talk about the organizational model. But if we get that wrong, well, this is going to be all out of whack, because you'll be slapping Band-Aids with your credit card all day long.
That's a good expression.
Mhm.
I like that.
So, yeah, and it says here on bottom of 192, your cost of sale reflects actual cost of capturing or converting your leads to sales. And then it gives you a full list of everything that those buyer and seller agents are responsible for: converting seller leads into appointments, making listing presentations, securing seller listings, handling communications during the marketing period, negotiating purchasing offers, converting buyer leads, making the presentation, secure the buyer listing, show houses, negotiating purchase offers, handle communications. I do have to make a point that it does not tell them that they should be lead generating. And we were talking about this a little bit in a couple conversations, is if we, as the rainmakers, as the mega agents, whether it's team leading or productivity coaching or mega agenting, if we can just understand that the lead and the appointment are the value for the agent and take care of everything else, the lead and the appointment, that's really what they're looking for. So sometimes we get them doing a lot of other stuff, and we just want them to be on appointments and with the leads. Okay, so if you look here, it says typical commission splits from a low of, this means that you would have buyer agents and listing agents on your team, and they are receiving 35% because you are doing all the heavy lifting. And it says to a high of, they are receiving 60%, possibly beyond, depending on unique circumstances. But that's unique. So the rule is 35 to 60 is expected if you're going to join somebody's well-oiled team. Well-oiled and supported is definitely the key there, because if it's not, then you're going to have people asking for more than the 60.
Right.
So on the top right here, figure 41, it says, when you look closely at the budget model, you'll notice that of the 9 categories, 2 account for the lion's share of your operating expenses, which is your salaries and your lead generation.
Okay, so here it has 41%. That makes more sense to me. The salaries.
Nope, that's of your operating expenses, not that of your total income. You're still in the same
No,
spot.
absolutely. Yeah. No, the operating expense. That makes sense. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, so 40% of your operating expenses. So at the end of the day, it says we call these the big 2. Chances are, if you can be successful in holding these 2 operating expenses accountable to results, your budget will be a healthy one. So all the other little stuff, we, not that we're not putting focus on it, but we're really going to hone in on what are we spending in lead generation, holding it accountable, getting very clear on it, and what are we spending in salaries. And some of us may realize that we're not spending enough. We could use a little more leverage.
On
What
page
if somebody,
194, could you
what page,
explain
Paula?
on page 194, can you explain to me the guy Glenn Calderon talking about how he studies his P&L. Currently, he takes 35% bottom line, and he wants to get up to 50. So what is he looking at? Because that sounds like a lot. That sounds like a very little for him.
Okay. So what he is saying is currently he did 73 million. He was in Ozone Park. So to me, that back in the day when this was written, maybe that represented 100 and something units. What he's saying is that he's taking home 35%. So if he brought in $1 million, he's going home with 350.
So that's
After his,
that's awful,
terrible.
isn't it?
and he wants to get it up to 50. So
Well, yeah,
if we,
but I mean, we're so much more profitable than that. I mean, that seems like, wow, like those numbers don't jive for me.
That's why you don't go for the big billboard that's costing you so much money, because it's,
well, I would ask you, Paula, do you know what your net, you, Paula Clark, not all the buyers, just Paula, what do you net out of the whole GCI for the year? Percentage.
Yes, I do.
Yours,
I have it written down.
okay. So
I
is it,
know the numbers.
before
I don't-
taxes, I'm at 72%.
Yeah, I can tell you that my numbers are really where they should be for what they say is profitable. And, like you shouldn't spend more than X. So I do know that I don't spend more than 30%. I can tell you that. At one point, even during COVID, it was like 20 because we weren't doing the marketing that we were doing, and we were doing it in different ways. And we weren't doing as much. And then we had Zillow gave us a reprieve. So it was at 20 last year, but we're about
Right.
32, no more than 30. If I get over 35%, I am sick.
but hold on a second. Here's what I'm going to ask you.
Mhm.
Are you counting your buyer's agent's income in the income and in the out? So,
The income I make from the buyer's agent is my income.
right, but the total income, so this is where I would love to look at your stuff, only because the entire team does 100, I'm just going to use blank numbers, 100 units, and the units are 500,000 each. So the entire team does what? They do 50 million in volume. The entire team. At 2.5%, that's 1.25 million in commission. That would be the total number. Now, of that, the buyer's agents did 20 million, let's say, altogether. The Rainmaker did 30, and the buyer's agents did 20 million. Well, 20 million at their 2.5 is 500,000. Right out the gate, that is an expense. That is a cost of sale expense.
Okay.
So we only really retained whatever your split is with them. You retain that portion of it. But when you did the math, you probably counted it as, I brought that portion in, that was my 100% of it.
Yeah,
And
the
so
old
that's where
30,
the
30, 30, 40.
I like it my
Yeah.
way.
And if it makes you feel good, Paula, continue.
Thank you, Patty.
You're-
Paula, I
can.
get you. I mean, I look at exactly what I'm getting, because that's why my bookkeeper does the P&L. So I look at exactly what came into my bank account. I
Right.
look at exactly what my expenses are. And I also had a hard time absorbing the idea of cost of sale, because I
Right.
didn't understand that the buyer's agents, if they brought me $2,000, if they got paid $2,000, but it didn't come into me and then I had to pay it out,
Yeah.
then to me it was like a wash, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right, right. So that's where those percentages are coming in. But here's if we could just do that exercise together, Paula, one day. Here's what happens is the clarity comes is how much am I paying the buyer's agents and am I getting the value out of them?
That
Because
I have
if you're
done separately, I have done that. And Kevin asked me that just yesterday. I do know exactly how
Good.
much I'm getting from them. And then after paying for the leads, Zillow, ever, I do know, is it cost effective? Obviously.
right. So if you're looking at two of those things separately, that's okay too. Just, that you have, hey, this is my model for my buyer's agents. I want to fall within this percentage of profit. Otherwise, I got to start cutting stuff or I got to make some changes. And then in my actual, here, I took this home and then I'm at that 72 number, then you would know what threshold you need to stay at according to the way you've been doing it. So it's not wrong or right. It's just knowing that what you're looking at are two different things to make up one business.
Arlene, is your head spinning?
Probably. Where is she?
I could tell. It's like we lost you at hello.
Sorry, yes.
And you know what? I really do, and Orly knows this, Cheryl knows this. I do not hate looking at budget and numbers and all of this. I just close my eyes and I say, all right, Katie, give it to me. Tell me what I got. So I have her doing it because I just want to go make the money. I don't want to look at how much I spent, but I am careful, but I don't like looking at it. But when I do look at it, it's always not as bad as I thought it was.
But you know what? You don't have to do it. You just have to know it.
You have to know it. Exactly. It's knowing it. It's like going to the accountant on Saturday for me, and the accountant had to tell my husband what we owed in Italian because they knew that I don't even want to hear it. It's like, I don't even want to hear that number from last year when the next quarter is due June 15th. And it's like, yikes, I'm working for Uncle Sam like 40% of the time.
As they say that, yeah. The first quarter goes to Uncle Sam.
Yep.
So, taxes is a whole nother thing. And I think that a lot of agents get themselves in trouble without, because they're not prepared. They're not planning. I advise everybody, if you know what tax bracket you're at, you know what tax bracket you're at. If you don't, just take 30% of each check and throw it into a separate tax account so that you're prepared for the end of the year.
Exactly. Especially if you're having a good year. This is where people get in trouble. It's not the bad years. It's the good years. I mean, that's why I had a yikes moment, because I had a great year last year, but Uncle Sam put out his hand and said, hey, where's my portion? So it was like, shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's a good thing if you have to pay a lot of taxes. But I also then encourage you to make sure you're talking to the right accountant. My husband and I just hired a financial planner, and, just assessing the team that is handling the money and making us, help us make decisions. This right here is part of the team, the tribe here, having these conversations. There's not a lot of agents that do have these conversations, right? And so then we could take that to our life, and we just got to make sure that everything is working for us. Sometimes we could be making money in this business, but then what we're doing with that money is actually, maybe we're losing somewhere else, or we're not being smart with the saving plan. And so I urge you to get an accountant that can speak your language.
Absolutely. My accountant does a lot of realtors that I've sent him. So I have a bookkeeper, an accountant, and financial planners. So
That's
you
great.
really have to look at every facet of your financial health. It's financial health.
And if you cannot afford to have all of those people in your life right now, I mean, just saying we all weren't there, right? In the beginning, let's say.
Right.
You need to at least get surrounded by the right podcasts and the right, the right mentors, and watch the right YouTube. And, there's information out there for you to surround yourself with the right information. So you have to seek that. And financially, what are we doing this for? To build a life by design and to live the life we want. And if we're not financially responsible, we're just having a really fun little show here. And then when it's all over, as my first broker would say, what happens if you get hit by a bus on Route 9? You're over. It's done.
What a graphic.
Do you have something set up? Do you have buckets of, what you're doing with your money? So, anyway.
But it's so,
all right.
But Mary Beth, just really quick to your point, So not everybody, like you just said, can have all those people in their corner right now. Maybe they're working towards it. And
Sure.
I talked about this last week, and I just think it's so important to reiterate it this week. Have separate bank accounts. So I pay myself into my card, and then, I'm thinking I'm doing real well. And all of a sudden I look at it, I'm like, oh, this is all I have left, but that's all I have to spend. That's all that's my income to spend. Everything else I don't touch. I have my my business account, and I just did this. I am no innocent bystander here. I'm just telling you right now, the hard way. I put everything into my business account. I pay myself in that business account, and I have a separate tax account that I literally shredded that card that they gave me for my tax account. So it's really inconvenient for me to even go and try to withdraw from it. And I have never have done that, but that is, you can set yourself up so much better that way, then go into all the things like that Orly and Paula have, which are financial planners and accountants and people, and so for bookkeepers. But I just have to reiterate that because I learned the hard way.
Thank you. We learn from each other. I think I shared Bowman Kitty and Kimberman Kitty. They are regional directors inside of KW in the DC, Maryland area. Kimber is an amazing woman. And she shared that her and Bo, and I knew this from Bo, they are estate planning now. They're in their late 30s, I think maybe early 40s. They are estate planning because of the wealth that they have built and the assets they've acquired at a young age. And he said it's never too late, it's never too early to estate plan. But what they did was, for the first 6 years, they worked in a nonprofit. So they were both working at a $40,000 salary. So the first 6 years of their successful real estate career, they stayed at that salary. They only paid themselves that $80,000 household income, even though they were making tons more. And they were, for 6 years, they lived like that. They lived below their means for 6 years. And that is what catapulted everything that they have now. So I encourage you to pay yourself, as Cheryl said. Think about, if you do your household budget, you know what you need to live on. That would be what you need to pay yourself with a little extra. And then everything else you should have a savings plan for.
Just stop.
I have a chapter about that in my book, by the way.
That's right.
Money funds your life, and it goes through that exercise exactly.
When the market is this good, stockpile your cash. Just save it. As we all knew in 2008, when the market crashed, we thought, oh my God, this is so great. We're making all this money. And we were spending all that money. So I think, not for everyone, but I can speak for myself, I was. But now you just know that it's not going to last forever, and we got to stockpile cash.
Arlene had her hand up.
I
think Arlene had her hand up.
Oh, I was going to ask you, when you were talking about the chart of account, the separate accounts that you have, I think, Mary Beth, you had talked to me about that Profit First book. So I've been trying to absorb it. It's taken me a little bit of time. And I'm just curious, do you really set up that many accounts? Separate accounts to have, like, the business account, and then it was the tax account, but then it was the account for your
future,
like the future, and like there was like so many different ones with
my husband and I have 7 accounts.
8. I was going to say, I think it was 8 different accounts I was supposed to open. And do you put them in the same bank, or are you putting them in separate?
You can use the same bank.
I put them in the same bank because it's easy to move the money when I have to move money in from the main account.
Okay, thank you. I didn't, thank you.
Yeah, the money comes in, and then I have a rule as to what goes where. We tithe 10%, we put tax 30%, and then everything else has a place to go.
So I'm just to segue off of that, I have different bank accounts because I don't want easy access to my money. So
there you go.
Really, it depends on how you spend. Orly taught me a couple of years ago. She said something so important to me, and everything I pick up, I say to myself, need it or do I want it? And if it's too much, I actually will text Orly or Paula and say, look what I found. And they'll both be like, you don't need it.
You really need those better boots? No.
Yeah, it's living more frugally and literally living, you know, the minimum. You have to know what your minimum number is. I mean, I have my number where I know what my freedom money is. I need, and that's for luxury, a car, fancy vacation. I need $288,000 a year in passive income. So
Sure.
know that number.
Yep.
I've surpassed it, but that was the number that if I reach that number, I know that I can retire today and live the same lifestyle. So know your numbers.
Orly, so we're going to end at 8:48, but what is the one thing that got you there that you could live passively? What did you and Aaron do right? What is the one and two things that you did right?
We lived under our means. I'll never forget that in 2005, when my daughter was babysitting for clients of mine in these McMansions, and she was about to go to college, and she said to me, why don't we live in one of these homes? And we had a very nice 4-bedroom colonial on an acre. But I said, the reason we don't live in one of those homes is because I'm not ready to pay $20-something thousand in taxes. I can pay for all 3 of your college educations in cash, and I can sleep at night knowing that I don't have to take a listing to pay a mortgage. That's why we don't live in one of those houses. And after 1 year of college, she came back home and she said, I get it, Mom.
Awesome.
That had to make you feel good.
It did, because you cannot leave. And then we downsized to a bigger house 2.5 years ago. So my daughters were, now you buy the big house, now you get the pool and everything. And my answer was, I could not bring you up with the core values I needed to in this house, because it's do as I say, not do as I do, right? Mm-hmm. So I brought them up with the right core values. Thank God my job is done. And then I said, and now it's about me and your father, and we're enjoying life. So these are the benefits.
And they get to enjoy it.
And they get to enjoy it.
What is your number one passive income economic engine? What is driving the
rental
income?
properties, passive income rental properties? Yeah.
Okay.
One at a time. And when we started buying them when the market faltered in 2008. So when everybody else was sucking wind because they spent all their money during the good times, we saved our money, and now we started buying short sale. Our first short sale was $100,000 in Arizona. That's now worth $250,000. So
how many states are you in?
I'm in 3 states: Alabama, Texas, and Arizona. Okay. I haven't seen most of my properties that I buy. I mean, I literally bought a house Thanksgiving, giving away my pies on the phone. I mean, I buy shoes more scrutinizing it than I buy property. Looks good online, numbers work, done. Get me the contract. Great. I don't need to see it. I'm not living in it.
You got to call Sandra. Sandra has a deal for me, and I didn't get back to her, so I got to get back to her. Sandra Nichols, she's the hat team in Alabama, somebody that Orly and I both know and deal with.
Yeah.
All right, ladies, it's 8:51. You guys have an awesome week. Next week, we're going to talk about organizational model, which I'm real excited, but we have Red Day events that are happening today in some of our offices, and tomorrow's Red Day. I will actually be up in Ridgewood all day tomorrow, if anybody's going to be there for Red Day.
Yay, finally, I get to see you.
And
I'll be there.
Lake, so I won't see you guys. We'll be in Woodcliff Lake, right, Cheryl?
On the 13th, yeah.
Tomorrow.
Awesome. And then
tomorrow? Yeah. Yes, tomorrow. I'm thinking today's the 11th for some reason.
And we have a bash, Red Day bash in the parking lot from 4 to 6.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Oh, right.
And then Patty and I have something up our sleeves for the coaching lobby for the summer, so we'll extend it to our book club ladies too, and it will be over by you guys.
And I want that link to command Nick what you're doing today.
Oh, Nick Baldwin?
Yes, the coaching lobby.
I'll send it to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great. I'll take that. Yes, thank you.
Okay, awesome. All right, you guys have a fabulous day. I'll see you later.
Okay.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.